Integrate the world protagonist and increase their original talents tenfold, hundredfold, or even thousands of times. Xiao Yan, Han Li, Yi Fan, and even Yang Jian. Although the increase in talent is gradually outrageous, the plot is also gradually collapsing. Looking at the boss in front of me, I'm going to die, I just want to follow suit and fish for it. Keywords of the novel. Protagonist of the Heavens, unlimited talent without pop-ups starting from Dupo. Protagonist of the Heavens, unlimited talent starting from Dupo, complete collection download of TXT. Protagonist of the Heavens, unlimited talent starting from Dupo, latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Tenfold increase. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Tenfold increase. Bang. 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 The piercing sound of gunfire erupted from the crowd, followed by a series of shots at the man standing in the center of the square. The shooter was a well-dressed middle-aged man, whose eyes were numb. The QSG-92 pistol in his hand slowly slid down, and an angry crowd followed the man who was shot covered his chest, his face full of disbelief. He looked at the figure who was shooting at him, but before he could think about the reason, his eyes turned black and he collapsed in front of everyone. The man who was shooting at him personally erected a high platform for him. Ding! In a daze, a pleasant voice rang out. What sound, am I still alive? He instinctively wanted to touch his chest, but a sense of powerlessness hit him, and he couldn't feel anything except for the sound. In a blurry state of consciousness, I heard two people talking, one old and one young. Little doll, do you want to become stronger? Do you want to be respected by others? Now that I know the reason for the disappearance of Doushi Chi, with my talent, do I still need you to become stronger? A sense of absurdity surged in his heart, but the conversation continued, and he felt a bit dazed, sometimes hearing clearly and sometimes unable to hear clearly. I don't know how the teacher plans to make me reach the Chi of 7 Dan Do within a year. He seemed to feel the light source in front of him and tried to open his eyes. It can evolve. Impossible. Do you have any fighting spirit? Who is watching cartoons next to me? I just finished reading this novel a few days ago. His efforts seemed to have some effect, so he tried his best to open his eyes. Tomorrow, you prepare 3 complete purple-leafed orchids, the older the better. Also, 2 bone-washing flowers. The age of these things is arbitrary. Oh, by the way, there is also a first-level magic core in the wood series, which are all low-level materials. I believe you can get them. Someone has come up, I will give up first. Also, don't let anyone know about my existence, including your closest people. Suddenly opening his eyes, he saw the steep mountains shrouded in thick fog, while his place was a cliff. He opened his eyes wide and looked at his clothes and arms again, as if the surprise in his eyes had been inherited from before his death in a previous life. The surprise in his eyes slowly faded as if he had already known something. He understood that the steep mountain range across from him was called the Warcraft Mountain Range, and now it is located in the back mountain of the Xiao family in Wutan City. And myself, on the other hand, is a boy called a waste, Xiao Yan. But the absurd feeling still filled his heart, and the memories that appeared in his mind made him feel like he had known him for the first time, but when he came to his senses, it seemed as if he had never known him again. Before fully recovering from it, a green yet gentle voice of a young girl came from behind. Brother Xiao Yan. Looking back, there was a beautiful girl wearing a purple dress, exuding a strong youthful aura. The girl's eyes reflected the figure of the young man, with a hint of worry. The young man recalled a little and understood that she was worried about not getting out of the humiliation of just being divorced. Although he is still feeling a bit confused and at a loss, his good psychological resilience has allowed him to respond in a timely manner. Xun'er, the young man smiled. Looking at the young man who suddenly smiled in front of her, Xun'er was slightly taken aback, and a hint of heartache surged in her heart. Now Xiao Yan seems to have something more than before. When the 2 pairs of eyes met in the swaying mountain breeze, Xun'er noticed something extra about Xiao Yan. Now Xiao Yan seems to be more mature than before. But Xun'er still smiled lightly and said, "Does someone seem to need comfort?" Xun'er's thoughts were naturally unnecessary, and she didn't know that the young man in front of her suddenly changed his consciousness, which was much more mature than before. This person is wearing the skin of a young man, thinking about why his followers in his past life shot him. The aura emanating from oneself is vastly different from before. The person in front of the girl remained silent for a moment and said firmly, "No, only after experiencing setbacks can one grow, right? She will definitely regret it." Xun'er pursed her mouth and swore confidently. Looking at the stubborn girl, the boy smiled slightly and carefully organized his clothes. Walking up to Xun'er, he said, "Before making any choice, be prepared to regret it, so as not to be too embarrassed. I believe Nalan Yanran is also prepared to regret it." At this moment, he let go of the incredible betrayal that had followed him for over a decade, and no one knew his personality better than himself. Thinking of the figure who has always been strict with oneself, I sighed slightly in my heart. The unspoken hidden danger in it is probably not small in that world. I have already died. What's the use of wanting more? That world has nothing to do with me anymore, and I, too, should come back to life in this world. The young man shook his head gently, as if he was about to shake off his previous identity and adapt to his current one. So Xiao Yan smiled lightly, his gaze gentle, and he reached out to tidy up Xun'er's somewhat messy long skirt, saying, "Xun'er has also grown up, no longer the little brat who follows behind my butt every day." Startled by Xiao Yan's actions, Xun'er's bright eyes stared at the impure pupils, which made her happy. "He has changed, but..." Xun'er's mouth gradually curved and she smiled sweetly. "Xun'er, over the years, don't blame brother Xiao Yan. During this time, I have been feeling confused myself, but fortunately with you by my side, otherwise I would have given up on myself long ago." And some of the grievances that Xun'er suffered over the past 3 years also dissipated in Xiao Yan's apology. Xiao Yan began to reminisce about the content of the novel. He had a good memory and could hardly forget what he had read in a short period of time. He was also quite familiar with these plots. So Xiao Yan spoke up and said, "Lend me some money." Now Xiao Yan doesn't have much money on him, so the materials needed to buy medicinal dust are probably enough. Money. Xun'er blinked her big eyes and said in surprise, "Do brother Xiao Yan need money?" "Well, I've learned a few skills recently, and I'll show them to you later. Brother Xiao Yan is still borrowing money from me for the first time." Xun'er covered her mouth and smiled coquettishly, "I still have over 1,000 gold coins, is that enough?" "If it's not enough." "Not enough, another 50,000, Xiao Yan said lightly. In the early morning, the warm sunshine shone through the window on the young man who was practicing on the bed. "Who?" As Xiao Yan exhaled his anger, several visible white air currents flowed through his mouth and nose, warming and nourishing his bones. The eyes slowly opened, and the white light in the pupils was very prominent, lasting for a breath before dissipating. Just last night, Xiao Yan carefully recalled the faint sound of ding, followed by a wave of information imprinted in his mind. Tenfold increase has been initiated. That's also true. Xiao Yan's heart is complex, crossing over is enough kindness, and he even gave him a golden finger. "Oh my goodness, did you intentionally let me enjoy myself in this world because my previous life was too difficult?" This golden finger is so abnormal that during the test last night, Yao Chen couldn't help but come out and watch, pinching and pinching, as if seeing something incredible. It was not until Xiao Yan said that this seemed to be a power obtained from his bloodline that Yao Chen returned to the ring with a look of surprise on his face. Tenfold increase. Show a tenfold effect on your existing talents. In a simple sentence, it contains a great deal of information. It is not just a natural talent in the ordinary sense. In last night's test, Xiao Yan found that it includes both the body and the soul itself, but not the fighting spirit. That is to say, his body and soul increased tenfold in one go last night, and in the test, although his fighting spirit was not increased tenfold, his cultivation speed increased tenfold. The talent for cultivating fighting spirit also belongs to the category of increased talents, and as the body and soul are increased tenfold, the capacity and quality of fighting spirit also increase several times more or less. What an exaggeration! After a brief recollection and comparison in his mind, Xiao Yan understood that even as a martial artist, he could never compare to himself in terms of physique. Enhanced tenfold physical strength. In his past life, he was definitely a little superhero, and this is just the beginning. Even with his own nature, Xiao Yan's lips couldn't help but become unrestrained. After all, an invincible path lay before his eyes. At this moment, Xun'er's beautiful voice came from outside the door. "Brother Xiao Yan, haven't you gotten up yet?" End of this chapter. Chapter 2. White Whoring. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. White Whoring. Xiao Xun'er, the most dazzling gem of the younger generation of the Xiao family, is unmatched in both beauty and talent. The usual gentleness cannot hide its indifference towards ordinary people. At this moment, Xiao Xun'er followed behind Xiao Yan, who was known as a waste, leisurely strolling on the street. Xiao Yan took a few turns and arrived at the entrance of Jiafeng City, which is a medium-sized neighborhood. The entire Wutan city has many, all of which are controlled by the three major families in the city. Mainly responsible for maintaining order and safety, and as compensation, mercenaries and merchants trading in the neighborhood market need to pay a certain commission to the family. 2 guards of the Xiao family were stationed at the entrance. When they saw Xiao Yan and Xiao Xun'er, they were clearly stunned and immediately bowed slightly to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded, then walked into the door with Xun'er. The neighborhood is crowded with people and has a huge flow of people. It is believed that the family's profits here are extremely abundant. "Third young master, Miss Xun'er, are you coming to Fengshe to buy something?" Xiao Yan turned his head and saw 7 or 8 big men dressed in the uniform of the Xiao family standing straight. The speaker was a middle-aged man in his 30s, wearing a badge on his chest with 6 golden stars painted on it. He was a 6-star fighter and also the leader of this group. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded, saying, "Uncle Pain, are you the captain of the guard appointed by your father? I remember you. I saw you on my birthday last year." Uncle Pain showed a surprised expression on his face, gave a simple smile, and said, "Third young master has a good memory, hee. Although the Xiao family is not a major force, they are also divided into several factions. The person in front of them is clearly from their father's lineage and is trustworthy. I'm bored staying in the family, so come out and take a stroll. Uncle Pain, go ahead and get busy. I'll call you when I have something to do." Pain's smile grew stronger as he scratched his head and said, "Third young master, just wander around. Our people are everywhere in the neighborhood. If there's anything, just shout out." Xiao Yan nodded and disappeared into the crowd with Xiao Xun'er. Xiao Yan bid farewell to Pain and began to search for the materials needed by medicine dust. Xiao Xun'er became bored and stopped at a stall, looking at various small objects. Xiao Yan was distracted and paid attention to Xiao Xun'er. He knew that he would encounter Galio, the young master of the Galio family in Yutan City, when he came out today, and then he would have conflicts with Xiao Xun'er. But Xiao Yan doesn't care. In his opinion, apart from Yao Chen and Ling Ying, the protector behind Xiao Xun'er, there is no one in Wutan City that needs to be taken seriously. Perhaps there is no one who can make Xiao Yan unable to resist. As long as he passes through this period of weakness, he can appropriately stagger various plots. However, in order to be steady, Xiao Yan still decided to follow the plot in the early stages and seize the opportunity that should be taken. In the middle and later stages, things don't have to be too rigid. Noticing that Xiao Xun'er had left the stall, Xiao Yan quickly went to the stall where she had just stayed and bought a light green bracelet. Naturally, it involves participating in the plot and pretending to be funny, adding some fun to a boring life. Sure enough, young Master Galio came with his supporting younger brothers. Xiao Yan stood behind Xiao Xun'er, watching everything with great interest. "Miss Xun'er, what do you want to buy in the local market? I happen to be idle, why don't we take a stroll together?" Galio smiled brightly. "Master Galio, I have already said that I have something to do. Can you please step aside?" Xiao Xun'er's voice was flat. Galio maintained his demeanor and took out a bracelet made of gold, blue, and iron from his pocket. The bracelet held a green magic crystal that had been ground into a round bead shape, emitting a faint green light, which was exactly the wooden magic core that Xiao Yan needed. Hee hee. This is the wooden spirit bracelet I just purchased in the local market. A little token of goodwill, Miss Xun'er, please don't refuse, otherwise, it would be a bit embarrassing for Galio to be under her command. Behind Galio was a group of people, as if moved by Galio's humor, all laughing along. According to the original story, Xiao Xun'er would want to catch a wooden magic core because Xiao Yan needed it, but was stopped by Xiao Yan in time and gave Xun'er a cheap bracelet that she had just seen at the shop, which would slap Galio in the face. She would then be clever and mock Galio for bullying him. However, in the end, he was mocked by Galio and held back a bit of anger. At this moment, Xiao Xun'er was also reaching out to catch it. Xun'er caught the bracelet. Suddenly, Xiao Yan reached out his left hand, patted Xun'er, and looked at Galio as he spoke, "This bracelet looks pretty good. Young Master Galio, you have a good eye." Xun'er felt a tap on her shoulder and was startled. When she heard that it was brother Xiao Yan speaking, she stopped moving. Galio maintained his demeanor and smiled approvingly at Xiao Yan. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Xiao Yan turn around. "Xun'er, although this bracelet looks good, I don't think it suits you very well. I have a bracelet here, and I think you will like it even more." After speaking, he took out a light green bracelet and shook it in front of Xiao Xun'er, revealing a smile of successful trickery. Xun'er looked at the bracelet she had been looking at for a long time and was a bit stunned. She turned to a surprised smile and said, "Thank you, brother Xiao Yan." After speaking, she instinctively tried to grab it, but Xiao Yan couldn't let her easily succeed. He raised the bracelet above his head and said, "Oh, although the right thing goes with the right person, we can't give it to you for free. If you like it, let's exchange it for the bracelet in your hand." Xun'er looked at Xiao Yan with a mischievous smile on his face and couldn't help but know his thoughts. He said with a suppressed smile, "Since brother Xiao Yan said it's suitable for me, I can't take it for free. Let's give this bracelet to brother Xiao Yan." Xiao Yan placed the light green bracelet in Xiao Xun'er's hand, which he had just bought for 3 gold coins. At this moment, he switched to the magic core bracelet that Galio had bought for over 1,000 gold coins. Xiao Yan turned around, took off the magic core, threw the chain in front of Galio, and casually said, "Thank you, Galio brother." Xiao Yan naturally won't show mercy. As someone familiar with the plot, he naturally knows that this guy is not a good person. Coincidentally putting the bracelet on her smooth and fair wrist, Xiao Xun'er finally couldn't hold it back. She chuckled softly and said that killing someone would even kill her heart. She had never seen brother Xiao Yan so bad before. But as if recalling something from childhood, my ears turned red again and I stopped speaking. Xiao Yan smiled and looked at the golden star on Galio's chest, pondering whether to act and pretend to be a little lamb. Galio's mouth twitched, his fists clenched and he looked at the smiling boy in front of him with a sinister gaze. "Young Master Xiao Yan, why? I know you don't have a high status in the clan. If you lose your fighting spirit, will you also lose your people? Even deceiving a woman's bracelet, Miss Sun, such a person. Oh. Are you saying I'm losing my fighting spirit?" Xiao Yan suddenly interrupted. Galio smiled mockingly upon hearing the words and said, "Xiao Yan, Doushi Qi San Duan. Since you think so, why don't we make a bet? There was a lot of people flowing here, and soon a group of people gathered. Xiao Yan and Galio were somewhat famous in the city of Yuten. One was a waste that had been passed down for a long time, and the other was a reputation of never giving up. Although they may not sound good, they are indeed considered celebrities. Xiao Yan turned his head and looked at a place in the neighborhood. Everyone followed Xiao Yan's gaze and saw the escort team in the neighborhood, led by Captain Pain, charging towards them in a fierce manner. Galio glanced at Pain with fear and said to Xiao Yan, "What bet are you making?" Xiao Yan made a carefree gesture to Pain, who was about to speak, and said to Galio, "We slapped each other. If you win, I will kneel down and apologize, and offer the magic core hands." Listening to Xiao Yan's words, not only did Galio chuckle, but even a group of subordinates around him burst out laughing loudly. Xun'er pulled Xiao Yan's arm and looked at him with a puzzled expression. "Brother Xiao Yan, there's no need to worry about Xun'er." Before Xun'er could finish speaking, Xiao Yan gave a faint smile and said to her, "I have a clear idea. If you believe me, just read on." Galio couldn't wait and sneered, "What are you waiting for? Come on." "Hee, I haven't finished yet. If you lose, take off your clothes, walk around the neighborhood 3 times, and learn to bark 300 times like a dog. Do you dare?" Xiao Yan chuckled and asked. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Palm Suction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Palm Suction. Since you're looking for your own death, then no wonder I am. Galio sneered and his fighting spirit quickly gathered in his palm. Then, his 5 fingers bent into claws, and his faint fighting spirit formed 5 sharp spikes, fiercely grabbing Xiao Yan's head. If this claw is implemented, even ordinary people will be disabled if they don't die. Pain kept an eye on the situation on the field at all times. When he saw Galio's sudden attack, his fighting spirit gathered and he immediately prepared to step forward to attack and protect the third young master. But looking at Xiao Yan being faster, he stepped hard towards the ground, but surprisingly, he came first and slapped Galio directly with a simple slap. Pop! The unsurprising collision left people dumbfounded, with people constantly rubbing their eyes, suspecting whether it was their own eye that was at fault. Xiao Yan's palm was strong and heavy, not only breaking Galio's wrist, but also landing on Galio's face with a scream. Bang! Blood and teeth danced in the air at the same time, and Galio fainted on the spot. He was slapped into the nearby stall, surrounded by some blood stains and broken teeth, and the scene was unbearable. Quiet. Apart from the still noisy voices in the distance, it seems like the mute button has been pressed here. Until Xiao Yan pulled Xun'er away from this place, everyone finally regained their senses and began to discuss, with a lively atmosphere. Seeing the excited crowd discussing loudly, Galio's subordinates only realized later that they were holding on to Galio and leaving the place in a disheveled manner. Xun'er followed behind Xiao Yan, with an incredibly brilliant light in her eyes. Brother Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan understood that this was Xun'er's request for an explanation, so he turned his head and joked, "I don't know if you believe it or not, I am born with divine power." Watching Xun'er's increasingly dangerous expression, Xiao Yan glanced at Pain and others following behind him and whispered, "Just last night, something suddenly awakened in my body, as if the ability was drawn from my bloodline. It not only restored my cultivation ability, but also strengthened my physique." This explanation is still somewhat exaggerated. But both Xun'er and Yao Chen have deep connections with the ancient 8 tribes. One is the daughter of the current tribal leader of the ancient tribe, who was sent to explore the Tuasha ancient Emperor Jade. One is framed by the Medicine Clan and expelled from the Medicine Clan. As one of the ancient 8 tribes, the bloodline of the Xiao tribe has long declined, and the excuse for awakening the bloodline is very far-fetched, but it is not entirely unreasonable. After all, this is the best explanation that Xiao Yan can think of at this time. But I can't say it myself. Just a little bit, relying on their brains is the best way. Concealing cannot be concealed, with a medicinal dust in hand and a Xun'er by her side. Xiao Yan shook his head and didn't think about it anymore. Instead, he came to a stall and saw a piece of black iron on it at a glance. His powerful soul instantly felt the soul waves on the iron sheet. At this moment, Yao Chen's voice rang in his mind. Xiao Yanzi, the black iron sheet in front of him is a good thing. Buy it. Taking out a bag of gold coins that had already been prepared, Xiao Yan casually threw them onto the stall. The mercenary in front of him said, 500 gold coins, are these 3 things for sale? If not, I'll leave. Xiao Yan picked out a first-order swallowing fox demon core and black iron plate, and then casually picked up a cheap item and asked the mercenary. The mercenary still wanted to speak, but saw Xiao Yan's movement of lowering the magic core and silently taking up the gold coin without saying a word. 500 gold coins, a very fair price. The market value of the first-level magic core ranges from 400 to 45, while the swallowing fox, a monster with weaker attack power, has a relatively low price. Xiao Yan gave out 500 gold coins and only added 2 worthless items. The mercenaries were only secretly enjoying themselves. Xiao Yan doesn't want to continue talking. If he drags on any longer, maybe people from the Jia family will come over. Although there is no need to be afraid of any danger, with Yao Chen's personality, he will definitely not take action casually. If he stays, he will definitely suffer some losses. Xiao Yan glanced at the absent-minded Xun'er, picked up the magic core again, and returned to the Xiao family gate under the escort of Pain. Third young master, be careful of Galio. That guy has very little heart and may come up with some bad ideas. If it were himself, wouldn't he be able to take that slap? Pain hasn't come out of that palm yet, he just spoke out and reminded me now. It doesn't matter, I will take action, Xiao Yanping said calmly. Pain looked at Xiao Yan, who was calm and indifferent, and suddenly felt that the rumored useless young master was becoming unfathomable. Thank you, Uncle Pain. If it's okay, we'll leave first. Xiao Yan and Xun'er left from the gaze of the guards, who looked at each other and knew that the Xiao family could not calm down during this period. Perry, hurry back and maintain order in the neighborhood. I'll go inform the clan chief. Pain turned back and said to a strong man. After finishing speaking, he ran all the way to the depths of the family. We must quickly inform the clan leader about this matter. After separating from Pain, Xun'er seemed to understand something and became visibly happy. Brother Xiao Yan, you've become famous this time. Xun'er chuckled lightly, with a graceful figure and an elegant state. Xiao Yan looked at the happy Xun'er and nodded with a smile, saying, I'm your brother. How can I do without a roll call? Xun'er stuck out her tongue and gave a playful smile, is it just her brother? Xun'er won't be so easily satisfied. After separating from Xun'er, Xiao Yan returned to his own room, closed the doors and windows, and turned back again to see the medicinal dust floating in front of him. The medicinal dust circled around Xiao Yan, looking left and touching right, as if studying some rare treasure. Xiao Yan looked helpless as Yao Chen poked his fingers around his face, silently placing all the purchased materials on the table. The materials on the table were prepared more than what Yao Chen had said. Oh no, Xiao Yanzi, did you really feel the awakening of your blood last night? Yao Chen was obviously still a bit incredulous. After all, even with his experience, such things are extremely rare. Xiao Yan calmly took out the black iron sheet and said, Teacher, can't you still trust me? Yao Chen touched his chin and realized that Xiao Yan had been under his nose for the past 3 years. But why has your bloodline awakened and your personality changed a bit? Yao Chen didn't ask, but a question arose in his heart. If the previous Xiao Yan was precocious, then the current Xiao Yan is already mature. As if he has grown a lot overnight. If it weren't for Yao Chen's extensive knowledge and powerful soul power, confirming that Xiao Yan had not been taken away, it would probably have started to doubt whether Xiao Yan had been taken away. Yao Chen took the black iron sheet and let go of his previous thoughts. He smiled and said, "There seems to be a fighting skill in this. The person who made the iron sheet should be an alchemist, so only those with exceptional soul perception can sense it." The martial arts and fighting skills of Doushi continent are divided into 4 levels, from high to low. Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang. The fighting skills that have been passed down among the ordinary class on the mainland are only about the high-level yellow level. As for those high-level fighting skills, they may only be obtained by going to some colleges or sections. However, there are exceptions, just like now, examples of being sealed by predecessors and unexpectedly obtained by later generations. Fighting skills are on top of the Doushi continent, and their importance is no less than that of Doushi Gong. A profound fighting skill can allow people to unleash far greater power than themselves during battles. Xiao Yan asked knowingly, "What level is it inside?" Yao Lao flipped through the iron tablets and smiled, saying, "Suck your palm." Xian level low-level. Xuanjia is low-level, probably not worth mentioning in the eyes of the teacher. Xiao Yan didn't have too many expressions on his face, but turned to ask Yao Chen. "That's natural. In the past, I wouldn't even take a second look at this kind of fighting technique in front of me," said Yao Chen with a disdainful expression on his face. "Teacher, since you said there is a sucking palm, is there a corresponding blowing palm? Combining the two may be a good way of fighting." Xiao Yanzi, "Not bad, I actually have this idea." Yao Chen touched his chin and spoke again, "If there is a specialized reverse thrust power combat technique that can be practiced to the level of perfection, this low-level suction palm of the Xian level may reach the intermediate or even advanced level of the Xian level." Xuanjia advanced, "You should know that the highest level of the entire Xiao family is only Xuanjia intermediate fighting skills, and only the clan leader and a few elders are qualified to learn." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Enhancement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Enhancement. Found it. Yao Lao lightly tapped Xiao Yan's forehead with his finger, pouring a large amount of information into it. After a while, Xiao Yan woke up. Blowing fire palm. Xian level low-level, capable of creating powerful wind pressure. This thing was created by a blacksmith who spent his whole life forging iron. Due to the need for a furnace fire, he inexplicably created this fire-blowing technique. Yao Chen said somewhat jokingly. Under the guidance of Yao Chen, it is not difficult to learn how to suck palms and blow fire palms. You should know that Xiao Yan's soul has been increased tenfold now. Learning combat skills is simply not too simple. Xiao Yan was able to switch back and forth between using 2 combat techniques in just over 2 hours. Standing in the middle of the room, Xiao Yan eagerly looked at the small teacup, rolled his palm, and released the suction. "Take a palm." With the strong suction, the water cup quickly flew towards Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan opened his eyes wide and stared at the flying teacup, releasing a fighting spirit along the meridians. Blow the fire palm. The powerful wind pressure is instantly released. Pang. Fragments were flying, and the teacup was shattered into many pieces by a powerful reaction force in the air. In Xiao Yan's powerful soul control, although not very proficient, he still managed to achieve the desired effect. Xiao Yan looked at the remaining fragments in the air, showing a silly smile. Compared to the previous slap that knocked Galio unconscious, this extraordinary power made Xiao Yan even more intoxicated. Yao Chen's mouth twitched. This kid's talent became terrifying in just one day. But looking at Xiao Yan's silly smile at this moment, Yao Chen shook his head with a smile. No matter how old he was still a young man after all. Cough cough. Look at you like that. It's embarrassing that the low-level martial arts of the Xian level have just fascinated you like this. The old medicine man grabbed the magic core on the table and ordered Xiao Yan, "Go get a big basin of water." Watching Yao Chen prepare to start work, Xiao Yan happily went to prepare in the quiet room. Yao Chen picked up the purple-leaved orchid and squinted his eyes. For a moment, a white flame suddenly burst out of Yao Chen's hand. As flames appeared, the temperature of the room instantly increased by a few degrees. Is this a strange fire? Xiao Yan didn't blink as he watched the operation of the medicine dust flowing in the clouds and recorded these in his mind. 3 purple-leaved orchids were successively thrown into a white flame, forming a green liquid. As the flame calcined, impurities gradually disappeared, and the green liquid became only the size of a thumb. Calcinate 2 bone-washing flowers and blend them into a green liquid. Finally, the magic crystal was refined for more than an hour, and even the hard magic core was melted into a light green liquid. Combined with the green herbal liquid, the raging energy of the magic core was washed away. The entire process lasted for over 2 hours, while Yao Chen remained energetic. The flame faded away, leaving behind a drop of emerald-colored liquid suspended. Xiao Yan's powerful soul at this moment made him feel the abundant energy contained in this drop of liquid. Yao Chen flicked his finger and dropped the liquid medicine into the clear water prepared by Xiao Yan, which immediately turned blue. In the future, practice here, and with your current talent, you can reach the 7th level of Dou Qi within 6 months. It's not a problem. Oh, by the way, this kind of potion may only last for a month at most. That means you need to buy the materials for making this thing at least every other month, Yao Chen said with a smile. Well, if you run out of money, you can borrow some from someone else. Xiao Yan nodded upon hearing this, not that he didn't refuse to repay. Immediately entering the green water, Xiao Yan handed over his hands and made a strange knot. As time passed, the green water in the wooden basin gradually emitted a strong airflow, which was slightly greenish and quickly climbed. Finally, with his exhalation, it rushed into his body. Xiao Yan's practice of neglecting sleep and food would be his own sin if he allowed the power within reach to be wasted. With the increase of 10 times in one's physical body, the current stock of Doushi is at least 3 times that of before, and there has been a lot of improvement in quality, which is related to the improvement of one's meridians and bones. The cultivation of Doushi is to nourish bones and strengthen the body. However, although the cultivation speed has also been increased tenfold, the actual effect of breaking through the realm is not as fast as the speed of breaking through in 15 days before, which can now be achieved in a day and a half. Therefore, Xiao Yan initially speculated that it would be 4 days after he broke through the 4 stages of Douji Qi. But the fact proved that he still underestimated it. Under Xiao Yan's practice of neglecting sleep and food, he broke through the 4th stage of Dou Qi in just 3 days. Yao Chen was surprised again for a while. After visiting the local market last time, Xiao Yan had prepared all the supplies. Except for his father Xiao Zhan, who asked about Galio's situation, he never went out again. I still remember the look of Xiao Zhan laughing up in the living room, but I didn't ask Xiao Yan much. I just patted Xiao Yan's shoulder and reminded him not to go out recently. If he needed anything, just let him know and don't worry about anything else. Then Xiao Yan borrowed 10,000 gold coins from Xiao Zhan. Then Xiao Yan returned to his own room and continued to cultivate. This time, it was another 10 days, and the Qi of Dou broke through to the 5th level of Qi of Dou. Yao Chen was shocked and stunned by this. He thought he had enough foundation building spirit liquid to use for a month, but it was used up in less than half a month. I thought Xiao Yanzi was overestimated enough, thinking that it would take at least half a month for Xiao Yan to enter the 4th stage of Douji Qi. However, I didn't expect that in less than half a month, not only did he break through the 4th stage of Douji Qi, but he even broke through to the 5th stage. It should be noted that the improvement of Dou Qi during the Dou Qi stage is completely different from that after being promoted to Dou Qi. Dou Qi usually only breaks through once a year, and only after reaching Dou Qi can it possibly break through several stars in a year. Keep going. Xiao Yan found that cultivation can really be addictive. The process of inhaling fighting spirit into his mouth and nose, integrating into his body, and continuously enhancing his strength is truly fascinating. This is an experience that Xiao Yan had never experienced in his previous life. Xiao Yan believes that in the future, what this world will bring to Xiao Yan, just like his current cultivation, is unprecedented and unparalleled. In the eyes of Yao Chen, who looked at monsters, Xiao Yan began a new round of cultivation. Xiao Yan sat in the foundation building liquid refined by the medicinal dust again, and the slightest medicinal power gradually integrated into his body, constantly being absorbed and transformed into Xiao Yan's fighting spirit and nutrients for improving his physique. Half a month later, Xiao Yan looked regretfully at the foundation building spirit liquid that had turned into clear water, without breaking through the sixth stage of Doushi. Why, do you still want to break through the sixth stage of Doushi Qi in half a month? Yao Chen also floated in front of Xiao Yan and said with a smirk. If an average person can break through for a period of 6 months, it will be enough to wake up from a dream and laugh at night. Look at this little guy's disappointed expression, and Yao Chen inexplicably has some emotions. It's not good to practice at home all the time. Do you learn a fighting skill? Yao Chen chuckled and took out a scroll of fighting skills. Xiao Yan lifted his spirits and looked at the scroll in Yao Chen's hand. I have been rolling at home for a month now, and I am a bit tired mentally. It's time to go out and take a look, and buy some materials for building foundation spiritual liquid and a few sets of clothes. To be honest, Xiao Yan doesn't like the few sets of clothes he wears. His appearance is not high enough and he lacks grace. Thank you, teacher. Xiao Yan showed a longing expression as he also wanted to practice other fighting skills. Yao Chen nodded with satisfaction and smiled, saying, Xuanjia advanced fighting skill. 8 extremes collapse. I remember this was someone who begged me to refine pills, crying and begging for them. If it weren't for being really troubled, I wouldn't have agreed to him. Xiao Yan immediately looked impressed. You should know that the highest fighting skill of the Xiao family is only at the intermediate level of the Xian level, and what Yao Chen casually said was the advanced level of the Xian level. Of course, what Xiao Yan admires is not what Yao Chen has, but his ability to be revered as the medicine lord through his own efforts, and his reputation spread throughout the Duki continent. The soul in front of me is indeed not an ordinary person. Close your eyes and sink your mind, I'll pass it to you. After Yao Chen ordered, he pointed his finger out and gently touched Xiao Yan's head. A large amount of information instantly enters the mind. 8 extremes collapse. Advanced melee combat skill of the Xian level, known for its powerful attack power. When practiced to perfection, the attack contains 8 layers of powerful energy, with 8 layers stacked together, and its power is comparable to that of lower-level combat skills of the Earth level. The attack power was comparable to that of low-level combat skills, and Xiao Yan savored the information carefully and exhaled lightly. Close combat may be the most powerful form of combat for oneself before obtaining a special fire. The increase in physical strength makes close combat the best choice, as the increase in soul strength can also be used for controlling morale and combat skills. Wait, remember to practice this fighting technique, you'll get whipped. Xiao Yan suddenly thought of it. The 8 extremes collapse does not require a high level of fighting energy, but it requires a great deal of physical strength. Although your physique is good enough to unleash the 8 extremes collapse, for this close combat skill, the stronger the body, the stronger the power it exerts. Yao Chen looked at Xiao Yan in a daze and smiled slightly. As for how to quickly increase physical strength, it naturally comes from external stimuli. What external stimuli? Xiao Yan hoped that Yao Chen could give a different answer than he had thought. Get beaten. The harder you get, the better the effect. Yao Chenin chuckled. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Perseverance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Asceticism. In the early morning, on the mountaintop of the back mountain, there is a hidden small forest of trees. The muffled sound of his body being beaten kept coming, and Xiao Yan gritted his teeth, furrowed his brows, and his feet sank deep into the soil. Sweat, emitting heat, dripped onto the refurbished soil. Xiao Yan was only wearing a pair of shorts, and his bare upper body was covered in dense bruises. Behind Xiao Yan, there was medicinal dust transformed into a soul state. He sat cross-legged on a huge stone, looking solemnly at the young man who was constantly persevering in front of him. With a gentle wave of his hand, the air fluctuated, and a fierce red fighting spirit shot out from Yao Chen's hand, hitting Xiao Yan, who gritted his teeth, leaving a whip-like mark. Hiss. Xiao Yan, who was hit, trembled for a moment, and the intense pain made it difficult for him to persevere, almost falling to the ground. 217 Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and continued to persist. Unbelievable, unbelievable, 217 times more than 3 days ago, there were more than 300 more fighting spirit whippings than 3 days ago. Yao Chen's eyes were filled with an indescribable shock. Xiao Yan's talent was definitely the best he had ever seen in his life, one of them. Ordinary geniuses couldn't even lift Xiao Yan's shoes. Is this physical strength and talent truly something that humans can possess? You know, Xiao Yan is not even a fighter now. 10 days have passed since the practice of the 8 Extremes avatar, and Xiao Yan is already proficient in using it. However, at Xiao Yan's strong request, physical training is still conducted every 3 days. Bang! 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 In the forest, the muffled sounds and painful moans mixed with each other, spreading to all sides. However, the misty mountain top destined that no one would notice a young man undergoing cruel training in the forest. Yao Chen's attack was very careful, and each attack happened to be the critical point that Xiao Yan's body could withstand. It would not cause too much injury, but also bring enough pain. After the pain, the stimulation of Doushi Qi becomes more energetic, flowing through the meridians and acupoints of the affected area, penetrating the skeletal muscles, and gradually enhancing the physical fitness. In fact, Xiao Yan doesn't need to be like this now. As long as he follows the plot, Xiao Yan, who has 10 times the talent, can easily obtain the inheritance of Emperor Dou and become the strongest in this world, Emperor Yan. But it is obvious that Xiao Yan did not intend to completely follow the script. He wanted to change some avoidable plots within his ability. After all, he did not have the energy to spend on those boring and troublesome things. And these pains were not unbearable for Xiao Yan. In his past life, he was caught and beaten several times for 3 days and 3 nights, and in the most serious case, he was hospitalized for over a year before recovering, let alone this training method of whipping. Bang! But with this sound, Xiao Yan's body finally couldn't hold on and collapsed to the ground. After a long time, a voice of concern from Yao Chen came. Hurry back and soak it in the foundation-building spirit liquid, otherwise the blood stasis in your body will be enough to cause serious injury. After completing his cultivation, Xiao Yan sat in a wooden barrel, his rapid breathing gradually calmed down, and gentle energy penetrated his body through his pores, clearing the vicious bruises and providing vitality to his body, and strengthening it, but this kind of cultivation is no longer meaningful. In this world, after all, fighting spirit is still the most important, Xiao Yan thought to himself. With these 10 days of cultivation, the progress is not as fast as at the beginning, and it is time to focus on cultivating fighting spirit. Let's work hard and break through the 6 stages of Doushi Qi today. The medicinal dust floating in front of Xiao Yan felt nothing to be shocked as he looked at Xiao Yan breaking through. At this speed, breaking through the fighter in 6 months is not a problem. Time slowly passed through Xiao Yan's asceticism, and in the blink of an eye, there were only 6 months left until the coming-of-age ceremony. The 8 extremes collapse. Boom! Dust was flying, gravel was splattering, and the giant tree they hugged fell to the ground with a loud crash. And what caused all of this was actually just a finger. Is it true that there are 9 levels of Doushi Qi? The improvement in the 8 extremes collapse does not seem to be as huge as imagined. The powerful soul allowed Xiao Yan to have unparalleled control over his body, and the powerful dark energy in the 8 extremes collapse was also mastered early on. At this point, even with just 1 finger, the force can be fully transmitted to the big tree, causing huge damage. Teacher, if we integrate our fighting spirit into our strength, can we cause greater damage? Xiao Yanqi thoughtfully asked. If it can be achieved, it will naturally cause a certain degree of interference to the enemy, but it is not very useful. If the enemy's strength far exceeds yours, it may not even cause any interference, said Yao Lao, touching his chin. If it's just a strange fire, it's not necessarily true, Yao Qin continued. There are some strange fires between heaven and earth, perhaps a cluster of flames carried by meteorites falling, or lava ground fires that have been calcined in the depths of volcanoes for countless years. These ground fires are stronger than flames ignited by fighting spirit. Practicing medicine can also enhance the medicinal power of the pill, but these abnormal fires are extremely violent. Even if they are met by chance, it is extremely difficult to tame them for personal use. The white flame of medicine dust is a strange fire, ranking 11th in the world as bone spirit cold fire. This kind of strange fire can only be encountered in extremely cold and cloudy places during the alternation of the sun and moon every 100 years. Xiao Yan naturally knew what the abnormal fire was, which was also mentioned by Yao Qin when Xiao Yan asked about the white flame before. But it's still early to think about these things. Let's prepare to break through the fighter first. I never expected that in just 6 months, Xiao Yanzi, you have already started preparing to break through the fighter. Yao Qin was obviously stunned and numb by Xiao Yan's super talent, and at this moment, he just exclaimed in amazement. At this point, Xiao Yan suddenly looked at Yao Qin eagerly and said, Teacher, I don't have the money to buy Ju Qi San. By practicing on my own, it may take a monkey year and a horse month to break through the dough. Gathering qi and dispersing, tomorrow you are going to prepare 4 50-year-old ink leaf lotus plants, 2 mature snake saliva fruits, 1 20-year-old spirit gathering grass, and a second-level magic core with water properties. Yao Qin casually said, and saw Xiao Yanqing's expression of helplessness. He couldn't help but be taken aback and exclaimed in surprise, What's wrong? Teacher, my face may have reached the bottom. These materials cost more than 50,000 gold coins. It's not that I don't want to borrow them, it's really credit overdraft. Xiao Yan looked dejected. It's all your business, it's none of my business. I'm only responsible for refining medicine, said the old medicine vendor with a teasing expression on his face. Seeing Yao Qin like this, Xiao Yan put away his dejected posture and said, Teacher, why don't you do this? You old man, you can easily refine some inferior foundation building spirit liquid, and then auction it off. When the money is in hand, you can buy the materials for Juki powder. Yao Qin thought for a moment and said, Okay, it's not uncommon for alchemists to auction off their pills. The foundation building spirit liquid is just the lowest level cultivation medicine, so it's okay to sell it. In the evening, Xiao Yan looked at several bottles of inferior foundation building spirit liquid displayed on the table and prepared to auction at the largest auction house in Wutan City. The Meitel auction house also belongs to the wealthiest family of the Gamma Empire. The Meitel family. Ice Emperor Haibudong is one of the bosses of the Meitel Chamber of Commerce. Regarding this Chamber of Commerce, there is also an acquaintance of the original work Xiao Yan, Lady Yafei. But now Xiao Yan doesn't want to deal with this woman. If he didn't really need gold coins, he wouldn't have chosen to auction off the spiritual liquid. Brother Xiao Yan, are you at home? Xiao Xun'er's soft voice sounded outside the door. In the room, Xiao Yan, who was about to change clothes, stopped and strangely opened the door. I wonder why Xun'er came to me. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Xiao Xun'er. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Xiao Xun'er. Brother Xiao Yan is still afraid that Xun'er won't be able to repay you. Since last time, Brother Xiao Yan hasn't actively approached Xun'er for half a year. Xiao Xun'er stood in Xiao Yan's room, looking at his melancholic eyes. At this moment, her small mouth pursed slightly and she said angrily. Isn't this busy practicing? Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile awkwardly when he heard Xun'er say so. Except for borrowing money from Xun'er twice, Xiao Yan never took the initiative to find her again, and several times when Xun'er came to find Xiao Yan was mostly absent. It was quite embarrassing to be caught at home today. For Xun'er, Xiao Yan has complex emotions in his heart. After all, he is not the original Xiao Yan. Xun'er is like a female protagonist that only exists in fairy tales, beautiful and gentle, beautiful and considerate, with an unparalleled background. The rarest thing is that her cultivation is directly proportional to her background. Of course, especially the most sincere joy that Xiao Yan has maintained throughout. Even better, even if she knew that Xiao Yan had a woman and a child, she was willing to devote herself to Xiao Yan. Such a girl, even in her past life, was unheard of with Xiao Yan's knowledge. Therefore, when facing Xun'er, Xiao Yan always avoids it. When it comes to love, there is definitely no such thing, let alone craving Xun'er's underage body. But for such a perfect girl, Xiao Yan couldn't bear to hurt, but for Xun'er, perhaps ignoring her made her even more uncomfortable. The original work once said that Xun'er could only be opened up in her childhood, and as she grew up, her cold heart could no longer accommodate anyone. If it weren't for Xiao Yan, Xun'er would definitely have become the kind of cold and independent ascetic goddess. But with her bloodline and background, she is destined to be the top figure in the world, lacking nothing and unable to give anything to Xun'er herself. If we have to say what Xun'er lacks, it can only be a lack of love. Difficult to handle, Xun'er saw that Xiao Yan was unwilling to speak for a long time, so she stamped her foot slightly in anger and lightly bit her cherry lips. Her fair arms swayed in her mouth, and a quaint scroll with a fiery jade color appeared in her hand. This is the advanced technique of the fire attribute. Nong Yen Ju. Xun'er stroked the scroll and whispered, "There are still a few months left until we choose the cultivation method. I know that Brother Xiao Yan is already preparing to break through the dough. After breaking through the dough, practicing advanced techniques early on will be of great benefit to you in the future, so. Brother Xiao Yan, please don't feel uncomfortable because of facial issues, Xun'er. This girl actually knows that she has already reached the 9th stage of Doushi. When did it happen?" Looking at Xun'er holding the scroll in his hand, Xiao Yan felt a little emotional. This pure concern was really rare. Yao Chen naturally doesn't count. Although he had an extremely deep relationship with Xiao Yan later on, his concern was different from Xun'er's. This is a pure and romantic emotion from beginning to end, without any benefits mixed in. Xiao Yan shook his head helplessly and said, "Xun'er, I didn't mean to reject you. I have a way to solve the problem with the martial arts." Brother Xiao Yan. Xun'er looked at Xiao Yan with grievances, her watery eyes containing a hint of mist, charming and charming. Xiao Yan felt a headache as he watched this scene. He couldn't help but rub his temples and said, "All right, Xun'er, there's something I must confess to you. There is a reason why I can cultivate so quickly. Half a year ago, a strong man passed by the back mountain of the Xiao family and saw that I had extraordinary talent. He even exclaimed that I had the posture of a Doushi, so he planned to make an exception and take me as his disciple to teach me how to cultivate and refine the necessary pills for me. However, this person saw the beginning but did not see the end, so I never confided in Xun'er." Xiao Yan exaggeratedly imitated the strong man's shouting, "Doushi's talent. Doushi's talent. The medicinal dust of the peeping ring in the ring. Puff the posture of Emperor Do. It seems that that person's eyes are the same as mine, they can all see that Brother Xiao Yan has the posture of Emperor Do." Xun'er looked at Xiao Yan, who was serious and talking nonsense, and couldn't help but smile brightly. Watching Xun'er's dazzling smile, Xiao Yan was slightly taken aback, and then his mood relaxed. He smiled and said, "It's like heroes have similar opinions. Hee, you can say anything in Xiao Yan's mouth." Xun'er's mood also improved with Xiao Yan's smile. Although Xun'er knew that Xiao Yan was trying to make her happy, she witnessed the progress of Xiao Yan in the past 6 months with her own eyes. Brother Xiao Yan, the cultivation in the past 6 months must have been very difficult. However, regarding the matter of martial arts, Xun'er can rest assured. Naturally, I won't let good things go without learning bad ones. However, there are some things that are inconvenient to explain to Xun'er in detail. The martial arts may be relatively low level at that time, but Xun'er should not be surprised. All of these things happen for a reason. Xiao Yan was afraid that Xun'er wouldn't believe it, so he took out a bottle of foundation-building spiritual liquid refined from medicinal dust from his pocket and said, "This is the foundation-building spiritual liquid refined by my teacher. Xun'er can take a look if he doesn't believe it. This kind of spiritual liquid is not something that ordinary people can practice." Xun'er took the foundation-building spirit liquid with half faith and half doubt, opened the bottle, placed it in front of her nose to sniff, and then spoke. The spirit liquid contains powerful and gentle energy, which can indeed assist in the cultivation of Doushi Qi. Well, these are still substandard products refined by the teacher. I'm planning to go to the auction house to auction them off and purchase materials for the Juki powder. For a moment. Persuading Xun'er, Xiao Yan and Xun'er appeared on the street together, making it rare to go shopping together. However, in no time, only Xiao Xun'er, dressed in a purple dress, stood at the street entrance, watching the figure of Xiao Yan leaving in a secluded manner. For a long time, as if thinking of something, a golden flame flowed through the pupils of my eyes. Teacher. I hope you really only value Brother Xiao Yan's talent and won't have any bad intentions towards him. Ling Lao, check out the recent strong players in the Gamma Empire, especially the alchemists. Yes, miss. A black shadow flashed past, and a male voice came in. This man was Xiao Xun'er's guardian in the Gamma Empire, the Emperor Do Chang, and Ling Ying. After bidding farewell to Xiao Xun'er, Xiao Yan arrived alone at the end of the street, which was a huge venue. Like the Xiao family, the Gallery family, and the Otto family, they are the 3 major families of Yuten City. The Mitre family, the Nalan family, and the Intel family are the 3 major families of the Gamma Empire, with strong influence in the commercial and military spheres of the empire. Therefore, no matter how much profit the auction can make people salivate, no one dares to have their own ideas. Xiao Yan, wearing a luxurious dress decorated with golden stripes, walked in step by step under the gaze of several guards at the door. Entering the clubhouse, the feeling of heat from the outside is swept away, and it is as cool as an air-conditioned room in a previous life. TSK, I don't know what the principle is, Xiao Yan sighed. Walking non-stop, Xiao Yan walked into the room next to the magnificent hall, where the 3 big characters, Treasure Appraisal Room, were printed at the door. The room was empty, and a middle-aged man sat bored in a chair. After seeing Xiao Yan, a professional smile instantly appeared on his face. Young master, are you planning to appreciate treasures? Xiao Yan took out a jade bottle containing the foundation-building spirit liquid and placed it on the table, continuing, foundation-building spirit liquid can increase the speed of Do Qi cultivation. And there are no side effects, and the medication is extremely mild, Xiao Yan added. The middle-aged man was moved by the words and carefully picked up the white jade bottle. His nose sniffed at the mouth of the bottle and said with emotion, "Young master, can you wait a moment? I need to invite Master Gu and I from our auction house to identify the spiritual liquid." "Go ahead," Xiao Yan waved his hand and sat in a chair, closing his eyes to rest. In no time, the middle-aged man brought an old man in blue with slightly graying hair. Xiao Yan looked up and saw something similar to a medicine furnace painted on the old man's chest. 2 silver ripples flickered on the surface of the medicine furnace, highlighting the noble identity of the man's alchemist. "Young master, this is the Guanai master from our auction house. He is a 3-star master and also a 2nd-grade alchemist," the middle-aged man respectfully introduced. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Promotion of Fighters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Promotion of Fighters. The old man's face was flushed with light, and his green clothes were faintly shining, indicating that this garment had been blessed with magic crystal protection. His ordinary old face also had an indescribable arrogance, which belonged to the alchemist's arrogance. As Xiao Yan looked at him, Xun'er also looked at him. The young man in front of him was wearing luxurious clothes decorated with gold patterns, but at most he was 16 or 17 years old. I haven't heard of any young man in the city who could possess this kind of spiritual liquid. The middle-aged man carefully picked up the jade bottle and handed it to Xun'er. Taking the jade bottle, Xun'er lightly sniffed the fragrant scent, squinted his eyes, tilted the bottle, poured out a drop of blue liquid, and then suspended it in Xun'er's hand. After some testing, Xun'er's proud face showed a hint of respect, and it was indeed a second-class pill. Xun'er turned his head and said in a deep voice to the middle-aged man, "The spiritual liquid has reached the level of a second-grade pill. What this young man said earlier is true." Upon hearing this, the middle-aged man breathed a sigh of relief and eagerly said to Xiao Yan, "Sir, are you planning to auction off this spiritual liquid?" Xiao Yan looked at Xun'er, took out all the spiritual fluids, arranged them in 2 rows, and smiled, saying, "Xun'er master, my name is Xiao Yan, the 3rd son of the Xiao family. I believe the master has also heard of me. I won't interfere with the auction, so please auction it as soon as possible. However, before the auction, can we exchange some materials and deduct the required money from the coins obtained after the auction?" Xun'er looked at these 2 rows of foundation building spirits and was surprised. It was a big order, so he said, "Of course not a problem, but auctioning off so many foundation building spirits at once requires releasing the information first in order to make the most profit." "Okay, no problem, but first prepare 2 sets of materials for gathering qi, a low-level ring, and 1 cauldron and 2 medicinal cauldrons for me. If the auction money is not enough, deduct it from here. If there is more, just transfer it directly into here." Xiao Yan placed a purple gold card on the table and said. Xun'er was taken aback, gathering qi to disperse. "This is a 4th-grade pill. Do you still need a medicine cauldron? There may be a senior alchemist behind the young man in front of me, and it is very likely that he is Xiao Yan's teacher." And seeing the purple and gold card, it strengthened Xun'er's idea even more. That purple and gold card can only be processed by those who are strong in spirit fighting. As for Xiao Yan, of course he had also heard of it, but what surprised him the most was not the story of genius turning into waste, but the incident of defeating Galileo with 1 palm 6 months ago. That slap caused quite a stir in the city of Jian. The Xiao family and the Gallery family almost got together because Galileo was severely injured by the fan and almost couldn't be saved. But at that time, there were many onlookers, and that palm was a public agreement between the two, and no one could say anything. Moreover, a few days ago, Xiao Yan was only tested to have 3 levels of fighting spirit. The whole city of Wutan, where this story was spread, is well known and even constantly fermenting. People say that this is because the Xiao family deliberately concealed Xiao Yan's true strength. In secret, Xiao Yan's fighting spirit has not declined at all. But since that time, Xiao Yan has rarely appeared outside, and people's curiosity has been hanging on, unable to be verified. Xun'er looked at Xiao Yan in front of him and sighed, "It's terrifying for future generations. I've heard a lot about your deeds in the past 6 months. I just don't know if the rumors and gossip in Wutan City are true or false." Xiao Yan looked at Xun'er with a hint of exploration and said meaningfully, "Whether it's true or not, it will be known from the coming-of-age ceremony in 6 months. At that time, Master Xun'er will come and show his respect." Xiao Yan naturally knew what Xun'er was referring to, and the biggest question in Yutan City at this time was whether Xiao Yan's talent had disappeared. "Okay. I will naturally be there by then. There should still be some inventory of the medicine cauldron materials you need. Why don't you wait here for a moment and pick them up now?" There is nothing that cannot be avoided. After the middle-aged man and Guanai left, Xiao Yan closed his eyes and regained his composure again. He just didn't want to spend time honing his fighting spirit. With his talent, it can be said that gathering the power of fighting spirit is a matter of utmost certainty. But Xiao Yan still plans to use elixirs to assist. Perhaps after breaking through the Dou Qi will become stronger. Therefore, once the Ju Qi San is successfully refined, he can immediately break through to the Dou Qi. Of course, Xiao Yan also has a small idea, which is to use Yao Chen's advanced alchemist identity to stand on his own platform, and then he will naturally become an alchemist. This will not affect one's own development and can also get rid of some troubles, such as the future alchemist Lu Shi. Xiao Yan continued to close his eyes and rest his mind, thinking that if the medicinal herbs could be obtained smoothly, the breakthrough fighter would be tonight. For a long time, a rapid sound of footsteps came, followed by two figures pushing the door in. He, Xiao Yan's younger brother, have you been waiting for so long? Yifei just went to pick up the materials herself, but unfortunately, many 50-year-old ink leaf lotus have been purchased recently, and the stock is insufficient. Tomorrow, Yifei will send someone to another place to pick them up and personally deliver them to you. A fragrant breeze blew in, and a crisp voice rang in her ear. A seductive and charming woman in a red dress stood in front of Xiao Yan's face. This woman, no problem, just remember to bring it tomorrow. It's urgent. Xiao Yan glanced at the milky white groove of the woman in the red dress. Yifei twisted her slender waist like a water snake and was about to say something when Xiao Yan stood up and said, since we can't gather enough medicinal herbs today, Xiao Yan will leave first. However, Lady Yifei chuckled and said, it's been a long time since you finally came. Shouldn't young Master Xiao Yan sit for a while longer? Not doing it will affect cultivation. Xiao Yan's face remained expressionless. After speaking, without waiting for anything from Concubinea, she walked straight out of the door, leaving only Concubinea to look at the mysterious young man and stand in place, covering her mouth and chuckling lightly. The next evening, on the back mountain of the Xiao family, Xiao Yan was holding a pill the size of a green longan in his hand. The Mitel auction house is very efficient. This morning, the Na Ring medicinal cauldron were delivered. However, according to Xiao Yan's instructions the day before, the Xiao family guard placed the Na Ring at Xiao Xun'er's place. After the guard notified him, he went to pick it up. The reason is simple. Xiao Yan did not want to deal with most of the characters in the original work unless it was necessary. In his previous life, he was busy and engaged in intrigue, leaving behind many troubles and regrets. In this life, he only wants to improve his strength step by step, to see the wonders of the world at will, to live the life he wants freely, and never want to worry about himself again. Although that is the case, Xiao Yan understands that most of the people in the original plot will still meet because Xiao Yan is not a ruthless person. For example, Little Dr. Immortal, without his help, Little Dr. Immortal would die. For example, Yun, without his help, might have been traced and encountered an accident after fighting against the purple golden-winged Lion King. Even from a conscience standpoint, Xiao Yan could not sit idly by, let alone some that were completely profitable, such as the heavenly tomb of Xiao Xun'er's family, or the strange fire in Medusa's hand. However, if we really meet, we should remove the issue of emotions and try not to create any boring entanglements. Looking at the sun setting in the western mountains, the final warm light shone on Xiao Yan, which made him feel a bit dizzy. No matter which world, many opportunities and freedom need to be fought for and seized by oneself. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but laugh. He added cheats while traveling, but he didn't have the qualifications to say these things. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan smelled the refreshing fragrance and without hesitation swallowed the Ju Qi San. Turn on the hook and turn on the hook. If it's not a big deal, you'll become invincible in the future. Let's take good care of this world where the weak have no dignity at all. Why? Just for one thing, with smooth thinking. As for whether this belongs to another form of oppression. I am strong, I am right. Always like this, forever unchanged. This itself is the main melody of Doushi continent. Gathering chi and dispersing the entrance, the faint chill spread out, and in a moment, it transformed into warm and pure medicinal power that rushed into the body. The fighting spirit within the body is enveloped by clusters of pure green medicinal powers, rapidly and orderly refined. As the medicinal power is continuously refined, the already filled Doushi in the body becomes even more crowded. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan's hand print changed from the one that absorbed the air of the bucket to a strange gesture, with the index finger and thumb touching each other and the middle finger touching each other. As the fingerprint changes, the surging fighting spirit in the body suddenly contracts towards the lower abdomen, and the pale fighting spirit gradually turns into milky white. Quickly compress the Doushi. Use your soul's perceptual power to compress, and if you fail, you will fall into the 8th section Doushi. Yao Chen's voice rang out in his heart in time. Xiao Yan nodded lightly, his powerful soul perception leaving no room for resistance in Doushi Qi, which was directly compressed into shape. Ping. Doushi cyclone, successfully condensed. Xiao Yan slowly exhaled, because of his profound foundation. This breakthrough fighter was quick and simple without any pressure. Clenching his fist, Xiao Yan smiled confidently. Although he had just broken through the fighter, he was afraid that even a star fighter could not withstand a single move in his own hands. The sound of ding sounded in his ears as if he had just arrived in this world, and Xiao Yan laughed wildly. This is cheating. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Burning and Execution. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Burning and Execution. The next morning, Xiao Yan knocked on Xun'er's door. Xun'er, are you there? I have something good for you. Xiao Yan held a jade bottle in his hand, which contained an excellent quality qi-gathering powder. Brother Xiao Yan. Xun'er was dressed in green clothes, without any hint of pinkish beauty, displaying an incredibly delicate and exquisite appearance. Xun'er led Xiao Yan into the door and sat obediently on the bed. Xiao Yan casually found a chair to sit down, then shook the jade bottle in his hand and smiled, guess what's inside this? Gathering qi to disperse. Xun'er said playfully. Xiao Yan looked at the obedient Xun'er and helplessly said, a woman who is too smart is not likable. Upon hearing this, Xun'er blinked her bright eyes and smiled like a beautiful crescent moon, saying, Brother Xiao Yan, have you been promoted to a fighter? Xiao Yan smiled and nodded, saying, with this gathering qi powder, Xun'er won't be much slower than me. Xiao Yan stood up and stuffed the jade bottle into Xiao Xun'er's delicate little hand, jokingly saying, you can't let Sister Xun'er cry because she can't keep up with my cultivation progress. Xun'er's ears turned red and he said softly, Brother Xiao Yan can restore his cultivation talent. Xun'er is not happy yet, how could he cry? After chatting with Xun'er for a moment, Xiao Yan left Xun'er's room and gave him the gathering qi powder, which was considered as a borrowed gold coin. Xiaojia's back mountain. Teacher, I have been promoted to a fighter, and now it's time to practice martial arts. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged in a cave, looking at the medicine dust that appeared in front of him. Yao Chen's floating body slowly sat down, pondered for a moment, and then spoke, what kind of martial arts do you want? Of course, it's the cultivation techniques that can evolve that the teacher said, Xiao Yan said casually. Yao Chen looked serious and spoke, this cultivation method can evolve, but I must make one thing clear. Practicing this cultivation method is extremely dangerous. Since I obtained this skill, I have never seen anyone practice it. Based on my years of experience, the likelihood of reaching its peak is less than 20%. Is it 20%? It's low enough, Xiao Yan said as he looked at Yao Chen's solemn expression. However, this is only for others. In fact, if it were an ordinary person, the possibility of successful cultivation would be even more slim. After all, how many people can pass the first level of refining the abnormal fire? Why is it only 20%? Xiao Yan appropriately cooperated with medicinal dust. This cultivation method was obtained by me unintentionally. It is unnamed and I named it Burning Decision. The reason why this cultivation method is dangerous is because it uses a different fire as fuel, and every evolution requires devouring a different fire. And Ihua is already a raging thing. It's not only rare to see for 100 years, but even if it's seen, who can be confident in mastering it? Back then, I was almost burned to nothingness by this bone spirit cold fire. And this cultivation requires not only devouring a kind of strange fire, but also knowing that an ordinary Do Huang's body can be tormented by a kind of strange fire, let alone 2 or 3 types. Xiao Yan nodded, realizing that the former ancestor of the Xiao family, Xiao Xian and Doushi Peak, had only forcibly turned 3 types of strange fires into his own. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but think of Xun'er. You should know that at this time, Xun'er's body was filled with the 4th-ranked strange fire, the Golden Emperor Burning Heavenly Flame. If she were to practice Burning Ju, she might have a different charm, but Yao Qin definitely wouldn't give her that. Although practicing this technique is extremely dangerous, I have no doubt about its potential. Once I succeed in my cultivation, I'm afraid there will be no one else who can compete except for a few people in this world. Looking at Xiao Yan, Yao Qin hesitated and asked, "Now, do you still want to learn?" Yao Qin extended his withered palm, and 2 scrolls, one black and one red, appeared in his hand. The red scroll is a low-level technique with fire attribute, while the black scroll is the burning decision. How to choose depends on you. Yao Chen's expression remained unchanged. In the past few months, he had already understood Xiao Yan's unparalleled talent. Even if he didn't choose burning decision, he might still be able to stand at the peak of this world. Yao Qin does not want to interfere with Xiao Yan's choice. "Teacher, I choose to burn it. Have you figured it out? Practicing martial arts is not just a joke. Once you want to change the martial arts, you need to practice again." Yao Qin said solemnly again. "For me, being able to become or even surpass the heavenly level cultivation method is what I hope for. After all, with my talent, practicing Burning Ju may not be as difficult as I imagine." Xiao Yan's expression was calm, and of course he knew the power of Burning Ju. This is a far beyond the heavenly level cultivation method, and not choosing it would make him a fool. Xiao Yan felt extremely excited as he thought about being able to freely unleash the wild and magnificent extraordinary fire, as if he wanted to try unleashing the cool and bone-like cold fire in his palm like medicine dust. Teacher, I'm sure I'll choose to burn it," Xiao Yan responded solemnly. Yao Qin slowly pushed the black scroll forward, and Xiao Yan lightly touched it. The scroll instantly transformed into a familiar stream of information, flowing into his mind. Decades later, Xiao Yan transformed all his fighting spirit into a light yellow fighting spirit. In the midst of the fighting spirit, a rapid flow of fighting spirit flowed through Xiao Yan's palm acupoints, emitting a faint yellow light. After practicing the martial arts, Xiao Yan clearly felt that his body had also improved slightly, both visually and audibly, becoming even stronger. "The medicine cauldron and materials are ready, now you can try alchemy." Yao Qin looked at Xiao Yan, who had transformed his fighting spirit, and nodded with a smile, saying. Xiao Yan lightly wiped the ring on his left index finger, and a light blue medicine cauldron of about half a meter appeared in front of him out of thin air. The medicine cauldron is light blue in color, with twinkling lights shining in it. 2 huge animal heads are carved below, with their large mouths open, revealing their mouth holes. The 2 mouth holes are connected to form a fiery void. There is also a hole on the top cover for placing medicinal herbs, and in the middle of the medicine cauldron is a mirror made of cold ice crystals. Convenient to observe the movement and stillness during medicine refining. This is a cauldron with 2 pieces, worth at least 150,000 gold coins. Although it may not be good, it is enough for Xiao Yan to use it temporarily. These days, Xiao Yan has watched medicine dust alchemy up close multiple times, and now he has finally begun to try to refine pills himself. It is false to say that he is not excited. After all, this is the biggest way for him to obtain cultivation resources in the future. Of course, except for murder and arson, this is my self-prepared healing prescription. If you try to refine it, I will remind you of the heat and extract the ingredients at any time. Yao Chen passed the prescription to Xiao Yan and then spoke up. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded and pressed his palm against the mouth of the medicine cauldron. In an instant, a wave of suction struck, and Xiao Yan did not resist. After entering the medicine cauldron, Doushi turned into flames constantly churning, but gradually stabilized under the strong soul control of Xiao Yan. Then another finger lit another flame, and a weak green airflow flowed in, blending with the flames that were not yet completely stable. In an instant, the flames stabilized. The reason why alchemists are precious is because they have both fire attributes and a hint of wood attributes. Wood attributes can neutralize violent attributes, and because of the principle of wood making fire, the neutralized flames are more durable and easy to control. Yao Chen nodded repeatedly on the side, and as he broke through the dough, Xiao Yan found his trace of wooden attribute. You know, the first time Yao Chen searched, it took nearly half an hour. Yao Chen knew that Xiao Yan had exaggerated soul power, so he was not surprised by Xiao Yan's performance at all. A clotting herb was thrown into the medicine cauldron, and under the burning flames, it turned into ashes for a moment before being expelled by the cauldron. The temperature is too high. After wasting 2 more clotting plants, Xiao Yan grasped the temperature adaptation point of clotting plants. A blood-clotting grass rose and fell slightly in the flame, gradually removing the turf, and the juice in the grass leaves was also smoked and baked into a little light white powder. The essence of blood-clotting grass was finally extracted successfully after Xiao Yan's 3 attempts. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Doushi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Doushi. 4 months later, the Xiao family went to the cave behind the mountain. Xiao Yan looked at hundreds of bottles of clotting powder around him, his eyes empty. There were many more clotting powders in his collection of rings. In addition, there are even several bottles of revitalization pill and foundation building spirit liquid. And these are all the achievements of Xiao Yan over the past 4 months. After Xiao Yan successfully refined coagulation powder last time, Yao Chen seemed to have beaten chicken blood, causing his center of gravity to shift towards alchemy. Xiao Yan could still occasionally hear Yao Chen muttering to himself, "I'm afraid even those so-called geniuses in the medicine family are not as good as Xiao Yanzi," or "ha ha ha. Within 20 years, I have confidence in cultivating Xiao Yanzi into." So much so that for a whole 4 months, Xiao Yan was able to reach the 9 stars of Dou. In fact, Xiao Yan arrived at the 9-star Dou Master half a month ago. The rest of the time was spent accumulating fighting spirit and preparing to break through the Dou Master, but there were no signs of wanting to break through in the past half-month. After refining the pill, Xiao Yan relaxed and put away the medicine cauldron and pill, preparing to leave the cave. But at this moment, Xiao Yan's face suddenly changed and he noticed that the energy between heaven and earth suddenly surged towards him. At this moment, Yao Chen also flashed into the cave from outside and reached out to touch his body. In an instant, a smile appeared on his old face. "Good thing, you're going to be promoted to Doushi. Are we going to break through?" Xiao Yan's face showed a surprised expression. Yao Chen smiled and said, "Prepare to break through, otherwise who knows when you want to break through next time." Xiao Yan nodded slightly excitedly and entered a state of cultivation. A continuous stream of energy came from the outside world, and Xiao Yan's body seemed to transform into a bottomless pit, crazily absorbing the energy from the outside world. However, these heavenly and earthly energies contain many impurities that require the refinement of meridians. For Xiao Yan, this is simply a small matter. Under the guidance of Xiao Yan, the refined energy of heaven and earth was refined in an orderly manner, entering the pale yellow cyclone. As the massive Doushi energy entered, a fierce suction force appeared, and the Doushi cyclone quickly spun, absorbing the energy of heaven and earth uncontrollably. Xiao Yan frowned lightly, feeling the increasingly fierce fighting spirit in his body, and tried to suppress it with strong soul power. But fortunately, these energies were all refined by Xiao Yan. Although they were absorbed uncontrollably, there was no problem, only a slight pain in the meridians inside the body. But with Xiao Yan's suppression, Doushi cyclone gradually transformed from violent to peaceful, but still rapidly absorbed external energy like a bottomless pit. As time goes by, the Doushi cyclone gradually accelerates its rotation, and while it rotates, it is also gradually compressed. When the Doushi cyclone reaches about the size of a thumb, liquefied Douki gradually appears around it. Under the rapid rotation of the Doushi cyclone, these liquefied fighting chi were thrown into the strange meridians and bones, constantly strengthening Xiao Yan's already abnormal body. Half an hour later, Xiao Yan let out a long sigh, his sleeves fluttering with his black hair, and a powerful aura that was at least half as strong as before burst out of his body. Did you just improve so much? Although he was so emotional, Xiao Yan himself was also aware that although the fighter broke through the dosha and only increased his own strength by half, it was because of this extra half of his strength that he was able to defeat the dosha head-on. Unfortunately, no one was able to give it a try, and their own strength was also judged by Yao Chen. Yao Chen felt the aura emanating from Xiao Yan, smiled lightly, and said, "Congratulations, you have taken another step forward on the path of cultivation. Now, you are a dosha." Xiao Yan stood up and tried to stimulate his fighting spirit with all his might. Suddenly, the pale yellow fighting spirit covered his entire body, and then pressed against Xiao Yan's clothes, forming a thick layer of fighting spirit gauze. Perhaps calling it a Douki gauze garment is somewhat inappropriate. After all, this Douki gauze garment is even wider and thicker than the Douki armor of an ordinary martial artist. It's just that there's more than one difference in quality. This is also an inevitable thing. To break through the great dosha, it is necessary to compress and solidify the liquid Douki in the Doushi cyclone into a solid Douki, with a mass far exceeding that of the liquid Douki. Moreover, Xiao Yan's Do Qi Gong method is too low. Level, and now it is only a low. Level yellow level. Even if the burning technique has extraordinary effects, it is only similar to the ordinary intermediate level Do Qi Gong method in the yellow level. Although I really want to improve my martial arts level as soon as possible, the purple fire in the Warcraft mountain range requires the cooperation of Yun. The Qinglian earth heart fire is not yet ready, and as for the falling heart flame, it is also one of the reasons why Xiao Yan does not plan to leave the Xiao clan temporarily. It should be 2 months after the coming of age ceremony when Canaan College came to enroll students. After that time, we can plan other things. There are still a few months left, and we should further enhance our strength. Teacher, the fighting skills of the Xiao family are not very good. Although the 8 extremes collapse is powerful, it is only a close combat skill. Do you have any useful long-range attack fighting skills, teacher? Xiao Yan asked, tilting his head and grinning. You kid, even though you're just a dosha, your strength can already be compared to that of a dosha. At this point, you still feel that it's not enough. Anyway, I have a ground-level combat skill here. Flame-splitting wave-swallowing ruler. It's enough for you to use for a long time. Yao Chen passed the flame-splitting wave-swallowing ruler to Xiao Yan, and then took out a huge ruler that was pitch black and looked like a giant sword. This is a heavy ruler cast by the flame meteor Xian iron, called the Xian heavy ruler. It has a magical effect of suppressing fighting spirit, but only with it can the power of the flame-splitting wave ruler be fully exerted. Otherwise, it will only have 30% power. No matter day or night, carrying it on your back can be considered as honing fighting spirit. Yao Chen hesitated for a moment before saying, however, it's better not to practice the flame-splitting wave ruler recently. There are many people in Yutun City with mixed eyes. In a few months, I will take you to the Tagore Desert to practice, and when you pass through the Warcraft mountain range, you can start practicing the flame-splitting wave ruler. Good teacher. Xiao Yan had no doubts and made a gesture of understanding, then picked up the dark and heavy Xuanzhong ruler. In an instant, the fighting spirit in his body began to flow slowly. Yao Chen nodded at this and smiled, saying, "Don't be fooled by its current suppression of fighting spirit, but when fighting, once you take it away, your body will undergo astonishing changes." Of course, Xiao Yan knew this. In the early stages of the original work, Xiao Yan was repeatedly knocked away with weapons, but when the enemy was proud, they found that Xiao Yan was actually stronger, so they took him by surprise and won by surprise. However, Xiao Yan just laughed at this. As long as this thing is hard enough, after all, this thing may only be available in the entire continent. The next morning, Xiao Yan sent the refined pill to Xiao Zhan's residence. 2 months ago, Xiao Yan confessed to Xiao Zhan about his apprenticeship and publicly refined pills, bringing explosive news to the entire Xiao family and Wutan city. Xiao Yan became an alchemist, and his teacher was at least a 4th-grade alchemist. And Xiao Yan's ability to refine pills indicates that he is a genuine fighter. This news has further ignited public opinion, but more people take it for granted, believing that Xiao Yan has never been a waste, he has just been hiding himself. I just didn't expect to be so low-key as to be publicly withdrawn, so this genius finally decided not to hide anymore and burst out with astonishing brilliance. When this news reached the imperial capital and the Nailan family, Nailan Jie only found out that his granddaughter had unilaterally withdrawn her marriage in Wutan city. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Adult Rites. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Adult Rites. The gossip of the people around him almost drove Nailan Jie crazy. After all, Nailan Yanran's actions undoubtedly pushed the Nailan family to a snobbish and ungrateful state. This made Nailan Jie, who valued his reputation very much, suffer greatly, not to mention that it was a promise made by his good brothers who lived and died together with him. Nailan Jie, who was furious, drove Nailan Yanran's father with a stick before catching him up with Yunlan Zong to meet his bold granddaughter. And Nailan Su, who went to Yunlan's sect, naturally returned in a fit of anger. "I am in charge of my marriage, no one can interfere." Under the strong influence of Nailan Yanran, the young master of Yunlan's sect, the poor old father felt frustrated. Of course, Xiao Yan didn't know about this matter. Even if he did, at most he would just casually say, "It's none of my business." In Xiao Yan's eyes, Nailan Yanran is a rebellious young girl. As long as she becomes more mature, it is natural for her marriage to be terminated, and it is also impossible to make such a fuss. Everyone has this period, but Nailan Yanran happens to have the capital to rebel freely. Who wouldn't make mistakes when they were young? Now, the 3-year agreement between Xiao Yan and Nailan Yanran is just a check that IN point for pretending to be forced to punch faces. Xiao Yan doesn't even want to go because it's just a waste of time. However, the people of the Gamma Empire do not think so. Xiao Yan, who was previously considered a waste in the past few years, has now returned strongly and will engage in a 3-year battle with his snobbish fiancé AE in 3 years. You should know that fiancé AE Nailan Yanran is the most outstanding disciple of Yunlan's sect, almost the appointed young master. Their battle must be eye-catching. After this incident, those who had always been pessimistic about Xiao Yan began to re-examine him, believing that with Xiao Yan's talent and the training of a 4th-grade alchemist, the battle was worth looking forward to, and the winner was the loser. In short, Xiao Yan has become famous again in the Gamma Empire. Xiao Yan was naturally aware of this, but he didn't mind. He only considered the crisis of the Xiao family that would arrive 2 years later. If someone came from the Soul Palace, he would have to make arrangements early. Even if it's not resolved, if Xiao Zhan is captured by the Soul Palace, it won't have any impact. After all, if he is rescued after being captured, he will be nurtured into a fighting emperor. There hasn't been any major crisis recently, as long as you're a bit cautious, but if you've been in contact with enemies beyond the dozong level, there won't be any crisis at all. And when I become a dozong, ordinary enemies have no choice but to deal with me, while those strong warriors like Doushi should not end up as a small character for me. Hee hee. Are you really on vacation in a different world? The sunshine was warm, and the mountain breeze brushed against his face. Xiao Yan lay comfortably on the mountaintop, enjoying the rare mountain scenery. The next day, at Xiaojia Square, the adult ceremony was being held in an orderly manner. Perhaps ancient etiquette is easily passed down, and the Xiao family's coming-of-age ceremony is particularly complex. A group of teenagers on stage were being played back and forth, like marionettes, while Xiao Yan and Xiao Xun'er sat side by side under the stage, whispering. The two of them, who frequently engage in discussions about the Xiao family, are occasionally scrutinized by others, but no one dares to come forward and chat with them. Even if it was unintentional eye contact with Xiao Yan, they would quickly retract and dare not look at each other too much. Xiao Yan has become accustomed to it. A few years ago, he received a lot of cold words and bad language, but now he has a lot of awe and fear. Since revealing their identity as an alchemist, many people have started to flatter themselves. But there seems to be one exception. Brother Xiao Yan, it seems that cousin Xiao Yu has been watching you all the time. Are you just ignoring her like this? Xun'er narrowed her eyes with a smile. She naturally understood the grudges between Xiao Yu and Xiao Yan. Whenever the two of them came into contact, one of them would fly into a rage. Don't talk to her, this kind of woman. The more you talk to her, the more motivated she becomes. Xiao Yan leaned back on the wooden chair, feeling bored and said casually. During this period, Xiao Yan has always adhered to a high-profile attitude of doing things and being a low-key person, naturally not intentionally provoking or adding to his troubles. On this continent, only strength is the only way to maintain dignity. At this time, Xiao Yan had already reached the level of a star master. As for the prediction before this, as an alchemist, it doesn't matter whether he went or not, and he did miss out on it because it was a crucial moment for refining medicine. If Brother Xiao Yan comes on stage, he will definitely surprise these people, Xiao Xun'er thought to herself as she looked at Xiao Yan, who was calm and calm. In her eyes, Xiao Yan had become even more outstanding. In less than a year, he had transformed from a third-level fighter to a fighter. If Xun'er had heard of anyone who could do it before, he would probably have thought it was just a fantasy. After all, this is too unbelievable. Xiao Yan can deceive others, but he cannot deceive Xiao Xun'er. She dares to be sure that Xiao Yan's brother is not hiding his talent. Xiao Yan looked at Xun'er and said, I was busy refining pills before, so I didn't even have time to participate in the prediction. I heard that Xun'er and you are all 5-star fighters now. Upon hearing these words, Xun'er pretended to be full of anger and raised his fist at Xiao Yan, saying, I'm glad I even went to see you. I almost arrived late just to wait for you. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's heart warmed as he knew that Xun'er would indeed do such a thing. He spoke softly and said, Xun'er, I don't value much about the entire Xiao family. There are only two, and one of them is you. That's right, one can hold his thighs, and the other has a tuasha ancient imperial jade on his body. These are the only two that can arouse Xiao Yan's interest in the Xiao family. To be honest, Xiao Yan began to crave his body. The Jian emperor inside was burning the sky, but unfortunately, he could only think about it. Xun'er naturally didn't think so. Her love brain was now tilted to her head, and her delicate little face was flushed. She recalled the scene when Xiao Yan warmed her body for 2 years when she was a child. Xun'er is the only two of you in the Xiao family, and brother Xiao Yan, you are the only one in Xun'er's heart, Xun'er thought silently. I had no choice but to stay away from the ancient tribe and lurk alone in the Xiao family when I was young. Without a clear mind, I was stolen and lost by Xiao Yan, this old six. As I grew up, I was abducted and had to argue with someone. Gu Yuan. He is just an old father who wants to give Xun'er a happy childhood. What's wrong with him? At this point, most of the coming-of-age ceremony had already begun, and finally it was Xiao Yan's turn. Suddenly, all eyes converged on Xiao Yan. From the VIP seats on the high platform, there were bursts of discussions, including the second-grade alchemist Xun'er. Master Xun'er, what realm do you think Xiao Yan is now? Asked the middle-aged man next to Xun'er. Upon hearing this, Princess Yafei listened curiously, with a pair of narrow and charming eyes, watching the young man walking towards the high platform. Xun'er also said with uncertainty, the 11-year-old Doushi has passed almost 5 years now. I'm afraid. Even if he were a Doushi, it wouldn't be surprising. However, he is still a first-class alchemist. Perhaps he has only touched the Doushi's bottleneck now. Hush. Xun'er spoke with an uncertain expression, but even so, Xun'er's words shocked everyone. Doushi, if he really is a Doushi, then he is a 16-year-old Doushi. If he were really a Doushi, then Xiao Yan's lowest achievement would probably be Douhuang. Princess Yafei opened her mouth in surprise. It should be noted that among the top 10 powers of the entire Gamma Empire, only the top 3 are the Emperor Dou powerhouses. In fact, this statement is also true. Even Xiao Yan, the author of the original work, achieved the lowest level of success, which was Emperor Dou. Yao Qin praised Xiao Yan's talent as even higher than Nalin Yanran's. When Nalin Yanran followed Yun Yun to Zhongzhou, she also became a dozong not long after, and at that time, Nalin Yanran was only in her 30s at most. If we don't talk about the influence brought by the Soul clan, Nalin Yanran can become the dozong even the Dozun with Yun Yun, then Xiao Yan, relying on Xun'er, can become the Dozun and even the Dosheng, which is not a problem. After all, after enduring for over 100 years, Xiao Yan was able to enter the ancient tomb and receive the inheritance of Xiao Xian through the influence of the high star Dou saint. His talent was greatly improved, and he was also a semi-saint. The only thing is losing face, he. Perhaps in the future, one can still receive the title of the strongest little white-faced fighting saint. But where are there so many? If there were no medicinal dust, the greatest possibility for Xiao Yan was that the ancient tribe would be destroyed, and Xun'er's body would die. Xiao Yan's head would collide with the soul tribe with iron, and he would be waved and killed. At this moment, Xiao Yan had been standing on the high platform being manipulated by various rituals for half an hour. The second elder only wiped a sweat and shouted, "Ritual retest." End of this chapter.